What is real? How do you define real?
You can't jump into cash. Cash is trash. What do? You get out.
Sean Harris, aka Big Sean Harris on Twitter, plays pro basketball in Europe. He's also the co-host of the Meme Factory podcast and host of the Bitcoiner's Guide with Big Sean Harris podcast. Sean Harris, welcome to the Bitcoin Matrix. How are you?
Hey, thanks, Cedric. Thanks for having me. I'm doing really good tonight. I'm excited to speak with you and to be on the Bitcoin Matrix.
Yeah, man. I'm excited to chat. I caught you on a panel down in Bitcoin 2022 in Miami, and that was pretty fresh. I really enjoyed that. And probably since that moment, I'm like, all right, I got to get Big Sean on the show. I was just intrigued and I wanted to get to know more. And I think, maybe we could just start with, what is the road to playing pro basketball in Europe like? What's that journey been like for you?
It's a lot of work from a young age. Really, to get to be able to play pro basketball in Europe, a lot of people don't really know how it goes. And there's some people that think it's an easy route. I've even had some people that think that they're dunking on me on Twitter. Oh, he plays professional ball in Europe. And I'm like, yeah, that's it's not something that's just easy that anyone can do. Obviously the NBA is would have been the ultimate dream, but being able to travel around the world is it's not a bad gig.
Right.
But really the way you get there is you have to play in college. And so I played up at Utah State. It's Division I in the Mountain West. We played against a bunch of fun teams like UNLV, San Diego State, New Mexico, in the pit. They just packed those games, and our home games are packed too. And then once you play and your career's over, there's a multitude of ways of getting overseas. Either there's teams that have seen you. Normally you have an agent, and either the agent will contact you or you go to a showcase and try to show off your skills in front of a multitude of agents and coaches and hope that someone picks you up. And that's what I did. And I got an agent that way. And then he's like, yeah, you're gonna have a good career over in Europe. And then he started getting me some jobs, and man, it's been fun. I've played for a few seasons now.
What are the opportunities like in Europe? Is it like packed with Americans, the league? Completely different anecdote, but anytime, kind of like you were saying something about Europe before, like anytime I would run into a friend and he'd be like, oh, I'm really good at this. And he'd be like, oh, he's really huge in Europe, or you get a t-shirt, like I'm huge in Europe. Like, the joke would be like, yeah, it's easy to be big there. But are there Americans on every team? Is it stacked with foreigners over there?
Yeah, so it depends country to country. Each country has their own rules on how many Americans are allowed on a team. Like in Spain, top league in Spain, you have 2 Americans that are allowed on a team, and not even every team will have 2 Americans. So it just depends where you go. But yes, most of these countries, they actually like to have Europeans, and especially Europeans from their country, so their own citizens playing on their top teams. So that's like what their goal is to promote basketball, but within their country, within their citizens. And then they'll bring out a couple of foreigners, some Americans as imports, and Americans will play, or sometimes they'll even have other Europeans or even Africans too. A lot of Senegalese players make their way up to Europe. So it's just kind of a mix on most teams.
What has it been like in terms of living overseas? Do you have any sort of war stories, even just aside from playing ball, or just like even integrating into different leagues and going from country to country?
Yeah, nothing like Russia invading Ukraine or anything. That would have been insane. But no, I haven't had anything too crazy. I played in Finland. I played a little bit of time in Estonia. a few years back.
Language issues or food issues.
It's funny because when you first go over, you think that you're gonna have a lot of big issues like that, and every once in a while you do have, like, there's a language issue or something like that. But if you go to Finland, for example, everyone under the age of 40 speaks pretty decent English, because if they want to travel around Europe, I mean, there's only, Finland's not that big of a country. So if they want to travel around, they have to speak a common language, and that's English. So the common language that most people speak when they travel around Europe is English. So that's what's nice, is a lot of people speak it, or if you go to touristy places, people speak English out there. But as far as food goes, each country has their own specialties and their own treats, and their own different things that they eat or they drink. And for me, it's an experience, because whether I like it or if I don't like it, it's just fun to kind of integrate yourself into a culture that you would have never known before, that you just don't even think about. And so for me, I really like it. And I think that's one of the things that keeps me going back to Europe, is not just the basketball, but also just these new experiences. I get to enjoy something different, a new culture. And then I get to come home for the summer. So right now I'm back home in the States. Right. So it's fun.
Is there a lot of trash talk on the court in Europe?
There can be. It just depends, right? And that's another thing. Like, some dudes, they'll talk a ton of trash when they play. That's how they grew up. Other guys, they got that stone cold face when they play, and they're focused. It just depends from guy to guy. I like to talk trash personally. So, I mean, I grew up with 3 older brothers. Talking trash was an art of its own. So I still talk trash when I'm on the court. I speak Spanish too, and I just got back from Spain, playing in Spain. So every once in a while, I would talk a little trash in Spanish. Not a lot of Spaniards speak English as much as a lot of the other countries in Europe. So it's better to know Spanish when you're in Spain.
Right. But, where'd you pick up Spanish?
I picked it up in Honduras. So I spent 2 years in Honduras. I did a church mission actually in Honduras for 2 years. And then I played in Colombia. I played in Spain. So
was Colombia your first stop?
Yes. Yeah. Colombia was my first. That was my first place. So it was a whole nother experience. But it was fun for sure. That place is, when you go out and play, you want to play for a team that's professional. Just like if you work for a company or you work for yourself or whatever, you want to make sure that's professional, that things are done right, that you're not wasting your time. And so as you go from team to team, you recognize when you first start out, you don't realize anything. It's like if you first start out working for a company that's super unprofessional, you have no clue. But then once you get experience with different teams and the way they treat you, you start to recognize, okay, I want to play for a team that's more professional, where all I have to do is focus on basketball. And I don't have to focus on, is my Wi-Fi down? Is, all these other things. Am I going to get paid on time? There's a lot of things like that you do that sometimes you do have to worry about, depending on what team you go to.
Yeah, I could see that. Did you have a favorite player or team growing up?
Yeah, I'm from Sacramento, so a Kings fan all the way, even though we have the biggest playoff drought right now in the NBA, which sucks. But no, I love the Kings and the Warriors, just because I'm from Northern California. And then right now, like, my favorite player right now is Steph. Steph Curry is just amazing. The things that he can do on the basketball court and how he just does it so effortlessly. You can just tell that he's put a ton of work into his game, and it's fun to watch a guy who's put that much work into his game just go out there and play free.
So then what do you think of Shaq and Kobe?
Oh, I mean, I got a ton of respect for those guys. I hated them when I was a little kid because they were beating my Kings. But there was a series where there was a referee. His name was Tim Donahue, and he was betting on the games, and he was a referee. And they found out that he was betting on the Kings and the Lakers series, and the Lakers won that. So in the back of my mind, I always wonder, I wonder if the Kings would have won, and then if they would have, then you think, oh, Shaq and Kobe's legacy wouldn't have been nearly as big either. Yep. So, I mean, winning championships changes everything. When you win, you just get all the respect in the world. And when you lose, nobody wants to talk to you. So it's like, it's just better to win. That's the one thing that I figured out in life. It's better. Everything's better when you're winning.
I think Kobe summed it up really well. He said, teammates come and go, but banners fly forever.
Yes.
Something along those lines. Where does Shaq and Kobe rank for you in basketball terms? I mean, I was in San Francisco in around 03, 04, 05.
Okay.
When the Kings were making that great run, they were super exciting. I really grew. I grew up with Michael Jordan. I was a little too young to really understand the greatness I was seeing every day when I would come home from second, third, fourth, fifth grade. Yeah. So I really appreciated the Kobe era. I'm kind of curious what you think of those two guys, Shaq and Kobe, in terms of where they stand in maybe the entire game.
Yeah. I mean, you look at two guys like that, I think just the dominance. I mean, I think Shaq is the most dominant player to ever play the game. And we were saying that when I was a kid and he was playing, like, he's the most dominant player to ever play. I mean, the way he could move and be so big and move so well was a cheat code. It was like, but I mean, it's not cheat. That's the body he was given, and you can't hate on that. And then to have a guy like Kobe that he's paired up with, you don't get to see that very often. So, I mean, you have guys like, best duo of all time. Who knows? Because Pippen and Jordan won 6 championships together. Well, I mean, Kobe and Shaq won 3, right? So then you got Magic and Kareem, Bird and McHale, or Bird and Parrish. I don't know who you would say. So, and a lot of those guys, they kind of had a 3, but with Shaq and Kobe, it was like they had 2. It was 2 guys.
Right. They should have won 8 in a row.
Yeah.
Together.
But they still would have time. Kobe still would have time to do some business on his own after that. Yeah. But that's what just goes to show how hard it is to win. Yeah. It's not easy to win at the highest level. Like Tim Duncan won 5 in that era. And so Tim Duncan and Ginobili and Parker, they were also like a force to be reckoned with. Yep. So, and Robinson was a part of the first one. Yes. Yeah. David Robinson in the first. So you have a lot of guys that are really good and they all want the same thing. So it just shows why Kobe was so obsessed with working and getting better, because you can't take it for granted. You can't take winning for granted, because you don't know how long you're going to win for. You don't know the day you might get injured, or the day that a key player from your team gets injured and it just messes up the chemistry. You get in a new guy, they fire your coach, you have to, everything gets revamped. So every year is important. And from the first day to the last, you have to approach it like we're out here to win a championship. And if you don't, someone else is, and they will take it from you. So I think I think a lot of people, you just don't realize that you're living in urgent moments. And when you realize that and you really break down, okay, if I'm, for example, I'm 32, so I understand it more, right? Maybe I can play in Europe till my goal is to play in Europe till I'm 40. that's my goal. We'll see if I can actually do it, right? But that's my goal. I came off 2 torn ACLs, so it's kind of like it's like a little crazy part of me that's like trying to push my limits. I tore 2 ACLs in college. They said I was never gonna play again. Now I'm like, screw you, I'm gonna play till I'm 40. That's like my goals, and I want to see if I can do it, and just to kind of push that limit, and then to help anyone else if they've ever torn ACL, they've ever gotten injured, I can be there and be like, look, yeah, you think your world's over, you can come back stronger, so just put in the work. But so going back to what I was saying, yeah, like if you're not urgent, then you'll never get the work done, and you have to be urgent in a basketball game. There's overseas, there's 40 minutes in a game. So if you take off a quarter, you're going to lose. And I think you're taking off practices every week. You're missing out. You're not getting shots up. Then you're going to lose. So it's just, you have to constantly be improving, constantly getting better, constantly be working, or people are going to pass you up.
Right. What is your routine like in between games, like in the height of season? Even sort of your uptime and your downtime in between games. What kind of things do you have to get done? Are you resting a lot? Are you eating right? What happens if it's working out?
Yeah. So for example, this year, right, with our games, our schedule, in your country, you normally play 1 game a week, which is nice for me, especially as I'm getting a little older. So we would play on Saturdays, and depending I was in the Canary Islands, so if we were in Madrid or something, we had to fly back on Sunday. But normally the Sunday we'll have the day off, and then Monday we'll come in and we'll just get shots up, right? Kind of just shoot around, get shots up, maybe run through plays. Monday I go to the gym myself and I lift weights. So I'll lift weights Monday through Thursday, do just 2 upper, 2 lower. And then depending on what team you're on, where you're at, we would normally get Tuesday off. Then we would go practice hard Wednesday, Thursday, and then Friday have a hard practice, but a shorter practice on Friday, and then play on Saturday. So that's kind of the schedule that we would run. And the weeks go by so fast when you're focusing all week on, okay, we got this team, we're playing them, and then you play them, and then it's like, all right, now next Saturday we got this team, and then before you know it, it's like, oh, a month's already gone by, and then we're halfway through the season, and then it's like, oh, now we're trying to vie for spots in the playoffs, and then the season's over. So I think all those things, they just it moves so fast when you're just focused on week to week.
Right. What's the social aspect of sort of playing in Europe? I mean, every team's different, but do guys hang out? Do some guys maybe hang out too much and it impedes their career? Is it a lot of fun being away and getting to meet people on the team, or maybe you don't even spend any time with people on the team? I'm not sure.
Yeah, that's again, this is all just dependent on your team and depending on what country these guys, like the culture and stuff like that, and depending on how outgoing you are. Some Americans, they go overseas, they just live in their home, like they go to practice, they work out, and they go home. That's it. They don't talk to anybody. Me, I like to get to know the culture. I like to get to know the people out there. So I always try to make friends on the team outside of the court. So this year I had a lot of friends on the team, and we would hang out. And I think the biggest thing is just like what you said, don't let anything impede your games and the way you play. Like don't fall for any peer pressure. Like make sure that you're producing, because if you don't produce and you don't win, you can get cut, you can get sent home. So you have to make sure that is the number one thing. But yes, that is, in my opinion, it's good meet friends, make friends, and just get to know people and get to know the culture. It was a lot of fun this year. I had a teammate. He had an ex-girlfriend, where they're still friends though, and she was a model in Madrid, and she would get paid to go to clubs, and if you just go to a club and show up and your model, they'll pay you out there. So you have to be there for like 5 hours or something, right? You show up at 11 o'clock or midnight, and you gotta stay there till 4 or 5 in the morning. And so they'll pay, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 girls, or maybe more, depending on the size of the club, maybe probably more than that actually, to come and hang out, and they can drink, they can talk, they can have fun. They just have to be there and be around. And it gets guys to come, it gets other people to come, more girls to come. It just makes the aura of the club pretty cool. So his ex-girlfriend, my teammate's ex-girlfriend, she was one of those models, and she could get into and she would do that at different clubs. So she could get into any club and the best clubs in Madrid for free. And she could get us into the clubs for free. So when we would fly out to Madrid and play on our away games, then on Saturday nights, my teammate would be like, okay, we're going here. We're all getting in free, so then sometimes the other guys didn't want to come. They would go, oh, we want to do our own thing. And they did that a couple of times, and they regretted it. Right. They're like, because they weren't going to the best spots. And then I would always go. He's from Senegal, this teammate, really cool dude. And we became good friends and stuff. And so I would always hang out with him after the games, and we'd always go to some fun club or some, like they call it, discotheque out there. And that was a lot of fun, because you just get to go out and hang out with these girls and hang out and have a good time. And then we'd be flying back home on Sunday morning. So as long as you're not doing that like on a Saturday night or on a Friday night before your game, that's where people get in trouble. So you got to pick and choose when to have fun and when to be a human, because you can't be try to be a robot all the time.
Yeah, I can see that. I spent one night in Madrid, and we were out in the discotheque until about 6 a.m.
Yeah,
and
they stay out super late.
And when we got back to the hostel at 6 or 7 in the morning, we took a train straight to Barcelona, because we heard they partied even harder there.
Yeah.
I mean, this was my friend's ideas. I was like, this is crazy. But I could see, you got to manage a lot there. And the other thing I'm kind of curious about managing or dealing with is playing in front of crowds, especially overseas and also in Utah. What was it like kind of playing in front of huge crowds and just ruckus noise?
You get used to that over time. I think, you're just so focused on playing ball. You have a game plan. You're kind of focusing all week. Okay, who am I guarding? What are they good at? Like, what are their best players? How are we guarding ball screens? Are we going to go under? Are we going over? Are we going to hedge them? Are we going to show? Are we going to ice it? So all those things that you think about, you have a game plan, and it's fun to incorporate the crowd when things get going crazy and someone gets hot or you get hot. It's fun to turn to the crowd and, pump them up, and they pump you up. But most of the time you're focused on the game plan. And you don't want to mess up, because you got 4 other guys on the court, you got your coach, you got the other guys on the bench that are all depending on you. So, there's a defensive game plan, there's an offensive game plan, and there's so much focus going on. I think a lot of people, when they watch basketball, especially professional basketball, it just looks like guys are out there playing at the park. But there, I promise you, there's so much, film, game plans, strategies that are going into it, talking about what we're gonna do. Are we gonna make an adjustment depending on how someone's playing? So you're just so focused and locked in that you don't really think about the crowd too much until it gets down to like key moments and it gets loud, and that's when it gets fun. Right.
Yeah. And I think, basketball seems to permeate through a lot of culture. And I'm kind of curious, there's a basketball meme, ball don't lie. So what does that mean?
That's ball don't lie. It's like it's like numbers don't lie, right? You know, the men lie, women lie, but numbers don't lie. Ball don't lie. It's just sometimes people, I mean, you can use it in a lot of different instances. Most people use it when say I foul a guy or a referee calls a foul. And I'm like, I didn't foul him. That's a bad call. And the referee's like, no, you got him on the wrist, or you got him on the hip, you pushed him, or you got him on the body. And I'm like, hey, you're blind out here. And so we might be in a little argument with the referee. Guy goes to the free throw line, misses the free throw. And you go, ball don't lie, right? Like,
right.
Or if he makes it, maybe the referee might say, hey, he made it, you know, ball don't lie. So then it's just something funny like that. And obviously the ball can lie because guys can just step up and hit free throws, or they can step up and miss free throws too. So.
Right. What about basketball is life?
Basketball is life. That's another one. That is more. So this is interesting actually. When I was in college, we had a guy who he played at Utah State, and then he played professional basketball, and he gave a talk at Utah State, and it was called Basketball is What I Do, Not Who I Am. And it was really cool because you know, when you're growing up, it's like, oh, ball is life. Everything revolves around the game of basketball. But then you get to a point where you realize, like, though, there's a lot more important things too. Like, there's so many more important things in life than basketball. But when you're in it, you can get caught up in it. And I think a lot of players, especially college kids, even myself, like you start playing and you have to focus so much attention on basketball that you don't really develop many other hobbies outside of basketball. And I think it's good for kids and for everyone to get multiple hobbies, multiple things that you like, have different passions in life. And in my opinion, I don't think ball is life, but it is a fun saying when you're all wrapped up in it.
Right. Is ball is life? Is that different than everything is basketball? Because I see you guys a lot of discourse on Twitter.
Yes, that everything is basketball. That's just Greg and Labra trolling me, because we'll get on a podcast or something, and I mean, I see Bitcoin from my perspective, right? I think everyone sees Bitcoin from their own perspective. So, like, we had Canute came on, and he was talking about how, you know, he's atheist and how Bitcoin is like it's financial atheism, right? But then you could have another guy on, like, there was a book called Thank God for Bitcoin. And in their eyes, Bitcoin is divine, given from God, right? So I think people just see Bitcoin. Once you really go down the rabbit hole, you want to relate it back to something that you're familiar with in your life, because that's what we do with a lot of things. And with me, it's basketball is obviously, like, so then they go, oh, not everything's basketball, you know? So then I troll them back and say everything is basketball. And because it's just a funny thing.
I think it's pretty funny. Is money a game? Like basketball is a game?
Money is a game, in my opinion. I think there's a lot of things that are games. So I think one thing that I didn't realize about money when I was growing up, right? I think something that I would always say is money comes and money goes. And I think it was just something that I would say because I didn't really understand much about money. And I was trying to be optimistic or happy or whatever. Hey, money comes, money goes, whatever. You get it, you spend it, you get more of it, you spend it. That's fine. And you know, one thing that I tell people all the time is I had a college class and there was a teacher that said, most people go broke because they're financially illiterate. And I never knew what that meant. And I thought I understood what it meant when he said it. And it took me a while to finally understand what he meant. It took me actually to get broke, to like not have money and to have all the money just going and not have money coming, until I really understood what that meant. Because then I had to actually sit down and be honest with myself. And I think a lot of people, they just neglect that. They'll neglect being honest with themselves about money. And you have to be honest with yourself, because you can't sit there and lie to yourself and say, everything's okay, but I have no money coming in, or everything's all right, but I'm living paycheck to paycheck, right? If you're living paycheck to paycheck, what are you going to do when you can't work anymore? When your body won't let you work, or if your mind doesn't let you work, like, what are you going to do? And that can happen at any moment. And so I think a lot of people are just living a very risky life, just living paycheck to paycheck, or they get an increase, they get a bonus or a raise, and then they raise their lifestyle even more than the raise that they got. And so, you know, I think CNBC came out with this stat the other day that said 30% of people that live paycheck to paycheck make over 6 figures a year. So it's like, you know, you can make money. The first thing you have to do is make money. But once you make money, then you have to figure out how to keep it. And then once you can save that, then you got to figure out how to invest it or how to make it multiply. Those are the biggest things, in my opinion. So that's what I had to go through in my process of learning the game of money. The thing that a lot of people don't realize is that there's this thing called inflation, right? So, you know, all of us Bitcoiners, we always talk about inflation and how it's the silent tax, or it's theft. In reality, in my opinion, inflation is theft. And so to me, when I really started understanding about money, inflation was the thing that I was like, that's the thing I have to beat, right? If I'm going to invest my money, I got to beat inflation minimum. That's the number one thing. So then I go, okay, well, how is inflation? What is it? How do I figure it out? And then, you know, then you hear all the Keynesians saying that inflation, you know, that it's healthy for a growing economy to have 2 to 3% inflation year over year. That means it's growing, and you get fed these lies. And then eventually you just got to ask yourself, like, is inflation necessary? Is it not necessary? And so once I realized that it's not necessary, then I realized that the money that we have, it's a game, but the game isn't fair. And that's like the Kings playing the Lakers and having Tim Donaghy as their ref, right? He's betting against the Kings. He's betting for the other guy. And so when you grow up, you don't ask yourself, if you grew up in the United States or whatever country you live in, most countries, you don't ask yourself, what's money? You don't ask yourself, is the dollar the right thing to use or not? It's just like, what's money? It's the dollar. The dollar is money. Those are interchangeable terms. So if you can like really go down that rabbit hole of money and how inflation hurts the majority of people, and it's literal theft from the bottom to the top to the people who print the money, then you realize that the game is rigged against you. And once you realize that, then you want out of the game. I'm the type of person, right? So I love all competition. I love basketball is my favorite game. But if I'm playing a board game, I love board games, things like that. One of the first things that I do when I learn a board game is I'm asking myself, okay, well, what's the strategy here? And when I explain a game, it's funny too, because I just realized this today. When I'm explaining a game to someone, I hate just explaining the game. Then I always try to take it one step further. I go, and then the strategy is you got to do this, like this. So these are the rules. then this is your strategy. This is kind of the best strategy you want to take, So that's kind of how I became with money. Once I kind of looked at it like a game, I was like, okay, well, what's the strategy here? And, then I realized that there was a fair game in town and that Bitcoin is that fair game. So once I realized that it's not controlled by anyone and that not being controlled by anyone is a benefit to everyone, then I realized I want out of the rigged game and I want into the fair game. And that's when I made the switch to just go all in Bitcoin and get out of fiat and get out of fiat denominated investments and fiat currencies and those type of things. So that's when I realized, okay, if the strategy is for those who have the money printer to print money, that's how they steal from me and they steal my time, then I'm going to get into a money where I can't be stolen from, and that's Bitcoin. And slowly and surely, more and more people are going to recognize this fair game. And as they recognize it, then that's going to benefit me, but it's also going to benefit them as well. So it's a win-win situation.
Right. Yeah, I really liked a lot of everything you said there. What was the book that you think set you on your path?
The book that set me on my path when I just first started learning about money, or about Bitcoin in general, and specifically in money.
Money.
It's probably the first book that I read, which is called The Richest Man in Babylon. And the gist of that book is just don't spend more money than you have. And which shouldn't be that big of a concept, right? But it's literally don't spend more money than you have. And then as hard as you work to make your money work harder for you. And that was something that blew my mind at the time, because I looked at money as, and this is what's hard for people to understand Bitcoin too. And this is why I like to talk about financial literacy or financial self-reliance. A lot of people think that money is just for spending. It's a medium of exchange. Like when people say, well, Bitcoin can't be money because where can you spend it? Like that's like the first thing that everyone says. Well, where can I spend it? And I'm like, well, first of all, money has more properties than just spending. But that's why that book was so good, was because it opened my mind to, well, don't spend more than you make. And then once you don't spend more than what you make, now you got to make that money work for you. And that was a different concept for me, was, okay, how do I make money work for me? And it's like, okay, you got to put it in some investment vehicle or some savings vehicle that outpaces inflation and that works and that you believe in and that you have conviction in. And so, making your money work for you, having savings is such a big thing. But you also have to figure out how to be happy during that too. And I think that's what a lot of people try to figure out is, can I be happy working, doing what I want to do, can I make money doing all that? So it's more than just going out and getting a job. You also have to figure out, okay, am I happy doing what I want to do? Can I live like this forever? Or is this a thing that I just grind out for 5 years, make a ton of money, and then move on to something that I really like to do,
Yeah, I think a lot of the calculation for a lot of people is difficult, because I just find a lot of people don't actually know what they would want in 3 to 5 years and sort of make different bets. I'll do this thing I hate for 5 years, but then they can't do it for more than 2 years, and they that doesn't work out, or some other sort of, they don't accept the full terms of the bet maybe with themselves.
Yes.
Or they push off the bet, maybe, whatever it might be.
Or it could even be, I've seen people that want to do things, but then they go, I could never do that, And so I think part of it is having that commit. You have to commit when you if you really want to do something, it's like playing basketball, right? What I was saying earlier. If you're half in, half out, you're not going to make the team. You're not going to there's too many people that want what you want. There's too many people that are fully committed to do it, and you're halfway committed, you're not going to get there. So half of it is just not, I think it's a couple of things, right? You have to be confident in yourself to say, hey, look, I'm going to go all in. Whatever happens, happens. I'm going to do my best to figure it out. I'm smart enough to figure it out, and I can make this work. It's going to be challenging. It's going to be hard, but I can make it happen. And then, so you got to have the confidence in yourself. And then you also just have to have the balls to say, like, look, if this doesn't work out, I'm still going to be okay. Like, I think people just think, well, if this doesn't work out, then my life's over, or, I'm going to commit suicide. It's like, dude, right. You like the best people fail and fail and fail, and then they win. And then they fail and they fail, and then they win again. It's like Bitcoin, like Bitcoin's volatility. It's not a straight up line. It's down, 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 up, huge. And then down, 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 and then up huge again. And that's kind of like the line of success for most successful people. And I think a lot of people, you have this like average mentality that fights at you all the time. Your family tells you, oh, well, those are lofty goals. Your friends are like, well, what are you doing that for? You're telling yourself, well, why are you lying to yourself? You're not capable of doing this. You're just an average, regular person. Why are you trying for these big things? And so you have all of this negative energy, and you have to be so confident and just kind of like not caring what happens. And that's when you can become at peace with yourself. Like, look, I want this. I'm going to try my hardest to get it. But I'm not worried so much about the outcome as I am just that journey along the way. And as I experience that journey, then I'm going to learn what I need to learn step by step. And if I make it to where I want to get to, it's awesome. If I don't, at least I tried, right? Like the man in the arena, I would much rather be that guy than the guy watching. I'd much rather be the loser, the man in the arena, than the guy watching. But I would rather be the winner, right? I would rather be the winner. And so that's why you got to be all in.
Yeah. The way I kind of deal with outcomes, especially with my kids, but it's interesting when I talk to peers about it, but I try to go over how, bad choices, generally speaking, lead to bad outcomes.
Yeah.
I can't guarantee that your bad choice will lead to a bad outcome. Once in a while, it'll lead to a good outcome. But good choices, generally speaking, lead to good outcomes. But I find, I'm not surprised when kids, but I find a lot of adults are saying, I want to make that bad choice and root for that good outcome. And I say, the more, go for it. But the more you repeat that and iterate that, it's kind of like going to the free throw line with bad form. Even great form is not going to get to 100% accuracy from the free throw line. Mm-hmm. But you're going to get to 80, 90% with that great form. And if you could repeat that and make good choices over and over based on based on good information or the best information at hand, generally speaking, leads to good outcome. Another book, it was Rich Dad, Poor Dad, big in your.
Yes.
Why was that so sort of on your thinking? How'd that have an impact?
I think Rich Dad, Poor Dad was really impactful to me because it showed me a way. Right, I read Richest Man in Babylon, and that showed me, okay, you need to make your money work harder. Like you got to save your money up, make your money work harder for you than you did for it, right? Okay, good. Well, what do I do? Right? I think that was my question. Okay, now that I know that, well, what am I supposed to do? What do I invest in stocks? How do I invest in a bond? Is that even possible? Right. Do I, what else is there for me to put my money into? How do I do it? Like, do I need a financial advisor? Like, how is this supposed to work? So then I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and I think that Robert Kiyosaki just talks about like using real estate as that vehicle to put your money into to grow your money. And that was really eye-opening to me because I was like, oh, a lot of the richest people that I knew owned real estate. So that made sense. And then it was like, and then he was like, you don't need to be a real estate agent. You don't need to be some professional investor. I was like, well, great. That's who I am. I'm just a regular guy. And so I think that was really cool for me to see. And I mean, and then the first thing I did was I had a buddy who was a real estate agent, and I was living in Salt Lake City at the time. And so I knew I could rent a room out for about $500 a room. And I was like, I need to find a house that's a 5-bedroom home. I can live in one of the bedrooms. I can rent out the other 4 bedrooms for $500, and the payment needs to be under $2,000, and I can live for free. And I was like, that's my first start, because, you know, like your biggest expense normally is your rent. So that's what I did. And this real estate agent, he took me to one house at 4 bedrooms. I was like, nope. Took me to another one. I was like, maybe. I was like, no, that's not it. You know, and then finally, after like 5 houses, I was like, look, dude, we got to get a house, 5 bedrooms, payment under $2,000 that looks decently nice. Right. Mm-hmm. I'm like, get this, or I'm not going to buy. He was like, oh, okay. So then he was like, oh, I think I found something. Took me to a spot. It had 5 bedrooms. It was recently renovated, you know, and I could get it and the payment would be under $2,000 a month. Perfect. I was like, let's get under contract. We put an offer in that day, got under contract, and then ended up buying it. And then I ended up doing that. You know, I got 4 buddies, moved in, and rented out each room, $500 to them. That was good because, you know, at that time it was like $700 for a studio apartment. So I was like, look, you guys pay $500 for a room, you get to live with buddies. It's great. It's great for you guys. It's great for me. And it worked out well. So then I ended up moving out of that place and rented it out more. And then I recently sold it. So I went down the Bitcoin rabbit hole after that. I was studying Bitcoin at the time, but I wasn't orange pilled. I didn't have it's crazy because I don't know how you got orange pilled. I'm not sure is that about your story, but with me, when I started learning about Bitcoin, literally no one that I knew about Bitcoin. So I'm sitting there learning, you know, listening to some altcoin podcasts, right? I have no clue about how they're all scams. I'm trying to learn about all of the whole crypto space, whatever that is. And it just didn't, you know, the ICO, like that craze happened. And I was like, I have no idea what's going on here. So I had to take a step back because I was like, and I didn't buy in. I didn't start buying until 2019 because I was just looking at it kind of from afar. And then the ICO craze happened. That's when I was like, this is some weird stuff. I don't know what's going on. And then slowly I kept listening. And then I started to change my content more geared towards Bitcoin only because that was what made sense to me. And then eventually I got orange pilled, but it was just through listening to podcasts like this, you know, reading articles, books, and, you know, just kind of doing the work. And I didn't even know about Bitcoin Twitter until after I was already buying Bitcoin. That's something that I wish I would have had earlier on, was something like Bitcoin Twitter, because that helps guide you pretty well. Yeah.
I mean, my story is similar, but maybe on the Meme Factory podcast, you guys could ask me those questions. I want to stay focused on you here. Yeah. It seems like you pick up things really quick. Is the Meme Factory even real?
The Meme Factory, it doesn't exist.
Doesn't exist. I feel like it's like Wu-Tang. Like, I don't know who's in it, who's not in it. I feel like I could be anywhere. I could say shit about the Meme Factory, and someone would just stand up and be like, I'm in the Meme Factory. Dude, you can't say that.
No, there's only a limited few that are in the Meme Factory.
How many people are in the Meme Factory?
We have. Well, do you count Sweet Toshi or not? If you count Sweet Toshi,
let's count Sweet Toshi.
UK, we
We're
have
counting everybody.
Okay, well, I'll just name them off. So you have Yellow, obviously, Greg, of course, Labra, Marcus, that's Plan Marcus, Bitcoin Becca, Rusty, Chair Force, Pedro, who goes by Retweet Pedro, Micro Chad, MTC BTC, that's him, same guy, and RD, me, and Sweet Toshi. So that is the meme factory for you.
Yeah, I just heard Raekwon, Ghostface Killer, Jizza, RZA, Method Man, Master Killer, Inspector Deck, Capadonna, You Got an Old Dirty Bastard.
Yeah,
And it goes on and on. It's really a fun show. When did you? Well, what is a meme? What is memeing?
Memeing, a meme it's just a reflection. It's a mirror of the truth, right? It's just a mirror of what's going on. That's why they say the memes make themselves, because someone goes and does something and we meme it. Like, we break it down where it's more digestible. So a meme can be anything, really, and we don't have to get too philosophical on what a meme is, but really it's, it could be a video or a picture that, like, maybe you can't grasp a topic, you see something and now you understand it more, or something happens and someone makes a meme and it's funny and you laugh at it, right? Like, it doesn't have to be super serious. I like to do something that's a little educational and funny. I think those are the best. But sometimes you just do some funny stuff. Sometimes you do more educational. Sometimes you try to do a big brain meme. Those get the least amount of likes. But sometimes you just got to do whatever comes from your heart and not worry about the likes and the retweets too much.
Besides coming from your heart, what are other things that make a good memer?
Make a good memer. Someone who's creative, like all these dudes in the meme factory, really creative people. Like, I would consider some of them artists, in my opinion. But to be a good memer, you don't really have, like, I think you have to make memes to be a good memer. If you don't make any memes, you're not going to make a memer, obviously, but anyone can make memes. Like, anyone can do it. I didn't know how to make memes when I first started. I remember Labra Huddle told me to make a meme one time. I tweeted something and he was like, "Oh, we need to make that a meme." I tweeted, it was right when Breedlove and Sailor did the Sailor series. And I was like, Breedlove and Sailor talking about Bitcoin. And I was like, I feel like Baby Yoda, but then when I'm talking about Bitcoin to my friends and family, I feel like Yoda, the old Yoda,
I remember that one.
And he was like, "Oh, you need to make that a meme." And so then I started from there.
I think I remember that meme. What is some of your favorite memes?
Obviously the laser ray to 100K is a great meme. I was a part of it, so that makes me feel pretty cool.
How did that come about?
That was in the chat that doesn't exist on Twitter, the meme factory chat that doesn't exist. I think Pedro made a meme and he needed laser eyes on it. It was when Elon Musk was hating on Bitcoin. I think he'd been pro Bitcoin, then he said, "Oh, we're not going to process transactions in Bitcoin anymore." And Pedro needed a meme about it, and he had a kangaroo for some reason. And then at the end, he was going to put laser eyes on it, like to intensify the meme. And Chairforce put laser eyes on it. Then Chairforce proceeded to, like, a day later, he just popped in all of our profile pictures with laser eyes on them. And he goes, "Hey, I think we should do something fun, have a campaign, and do like laser ray to until 100K and put on our profiles. And then if any plebs want to put on their profiles, we can help them out." We're like, "All right, that sounds cool." Because Chairforce had already done, like, he had put Santa hats on people's profiles before, he's always pretty good about like putting things on people's profile pics. And we're like, okay, that's great. And then Marcus was like, okay, well, let's do it at this point when Bitcoin crosses like this number and stuff. And we did it. And then it just caught on like wildfire. It was insane. You know, we saw Elon Musk put it on his, we saw Saylor put it on his, and then Saylor followed all of us. And we like, you know, we were just like, oh, we're some plebs, but it felt pretty special to see how we could do a meme and how we could go all over Bitcoin Twitter.
Do you think your trash talking on the basketball court has helped you out with the memeing? It seems like a lot of the memeing between you guys and the community is a lot of trash talking.
Yeah. Well, we get a lot of practice on each other because we'll meme at each other on Twitter and in the back channels and the chats and stuff too. So we're always memeing or getting memed at by friends. And then it's like when you grow up, right? And some random person talks trash to a brother or your sister or whatever, you're like, hold on, I'm the one that can talk trash to them, like not you. So then when someone gets in an argument on Twitter, then we're all coming in to help each other out and we're all memeing at that person. Or if someone says something just outright stupid about Bitcoin, like Bitcoin isn't scarce because it's infinitely divisible, then that's
Right.
when we go, congrats, you solved world hunger, and we just pile on the memes.
Right. What are some of your favorite memes?
Some of my other favorite memes, Greg just did a meme about Richard Hart. Greg Zadge did a meme about Richard Hart. It's a video meme, and I watched it like 50 times. It's hard for me to explain it, but he just basically goes through how Richard Hart's wearing all these fancy clothes and all these Hexicans, they like argue for Richard Hart, but they're his exit liquidity, right? It's like, how do you think he's buying all these Gucci suits? That he's buying it with your money. So good luck once he rug pulls. But my all-time favorite meme, I would say, I've said this before, it's the Neo, it's the Matrix meme, Bitcoin Matrix, right? So it was when Neo's talking to Morpheus, and he goes, so you're telling me that one day I'll be able to trade all my Bitcoin for millions? And then Morpheus goes, no, Neo, I'm telling you, when one day you won't have to. And that was when I was really early in studying Bitcoin. And I wish I knew who made that meme because I have no idea who made it. But I really like that meme because it opened my eyes to, I'd never thought about not going back to dollars before. I'd never thought, I knew that the money was I knew inflation was here. And I realized the money printer, I think once I really started buying Bitcoin was when I realized the money printer will never stop. Yeah, it can stop temporarily, but once you have access to a money printer, you will use the money printer and you will use it forever. And you might try to tell the public, oh, we're going to stop. But you'll just stop temporarily for a few months and then you'll turn it right back on because it's too enticing. And so that's when I really started to buy Bitcoin, was once that connected to my brain, was like,
yeah, that meme encapsulates a lot of different ideas.
Yeah.
Or kind of the way all the podcasts I've been listening to at that point, trying to understand what I've been hearing and frame it up. But then, but I think where it really leads you to is unit of account.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's like, okay, I got store value, right?
Uh-huh.
I got, medium exchange is like neither here nor there. I got great medium exchange, but I could use this for medium exchange. But store value, great. I could speculate. I can invest in this thing. I could save in this thing. But wait a minute, I'm not going back.
Yes.
And once you're not going back, then okay. So now, really, for me, that makes you think of more of as a tool, and this tool that I'm going to stick with, and I'm going to give up I'm going to replace the other tool.
Yeah.
So now, what do I gain from that? I get unit of account and other things, but
yeah, I think that is like it's fun when you're first starting Bitcoin, you're going down that Bitcoin rabbit hole. Your mind gets blown almost every day. And I like, that's what I do miss about being further down the rabbit hole, is even though I'm more like, I have way more conviction now and I'm never going back to the dollar, those just mind-blowing experiences that you would have day after day, and you just couldn't get enough Bitcoin information. It's still like that, where I can't get enough, but just the mind-blowing experiences, I've never had another time like that in my life. It's just, what, this is what's going on. Are they really printing this much? And then you go, well, Bitcoin, and you're like, oh wait, it's actually a tool for savings, and that no one can actually control it, and just all these things. There's 21 million, and then you go, there's 21 million, but there's really only probably 17 or 16 million available. And then you go, well, how many plebs have them that aren't going to give up any? Right. And then you go down, there's 8 billion people on the planet. You go, what? And I have access to get one? It's like, this was never meant for one person. Like, the scarcity just slaps you in the face when you really understand it, how scarce it is. And the fact that you go, no one can take it from me. Like, even your house in a war, like, look at Ukraine. You have a house in Ukraine, gone. That house isn't yours anymore. And so it's just, and people just think that could never happen here in the United States. Oh, they could never seize my bank account. They could never freeze my funds. There could never be a war here. The government could never take away my home. And there's just too much trust that it's involved. And it's like, why work your whole life in saving up money where you have to constantly trust in humans who are greedy and who constantly steal from you, when you could save in a money and save all your wealth and store your wealth in a money that's uncontrollable, that can't be confiscated from you, that can't be duplicated, and that you can hold the keys to, and no one can steal it from you. So that's how I look at it. And the mind-blowing, once that clicks, it's almost euphoric, where you can't explain it, how good it feels. And then you try to explain it to friends and family, and they don't get it at all. And then you're just like, what do you not get about this? It's like, I've been seeing this for years now, and they still don't get it. But everyone takes their own path to Bitcoin, and it comes in their own time.
You seem like you have a very high social IQ, that you read people well, you get along with people well, and kind of I get the feeling an issue wouldn't come between you and someone you enjoy their company of. Has there been anyone that, like, you've been frustrated with by their not getting Bitcoin? And has anyone gotten frustrated with you for talking about Bitcoin too much? And I'm talking about in your personal life offline.
Yeah. It's funny, when I was first going down the Bitcoin rabbit hole, and I was starting to understand things, I couldn't explain it very well like I can now. And so I had a buddy who was like, Bitcoin's a hoax, it's Ponzi. He's like, you can't just create your own money and think value is going to accrue there. And I was like, yeah, but they're printing the dollar like crazy. That's I didn't have really anything. And he kind of got a little mad that I was defending Bitcoin. And I was like, I was naturally surprised, because I hadn't seen too many. I didn't know who Peter Schiff was even at that time. So I hadn't even seen like true haters of Bitcoin before. I was like, oh, this is starting to make more sense. I didn't realize that there were haters out there. But recently, that was a long time ago. Recently, that friend has actually bought Bitcoin, and so that's pretty cool. But there was a time where I was speaking, I think, too much about Bitcoin. It was like all I ever wanted to talk to about people with. And maybe around a year ago or so, I just kind of stopped bringing it up. And then now I just let people bring it up to me, because I don't want to be like that guy that people are always, because now I'm like, look, if you're going to ask me questions, I'm going to talk your ear off about Bitcoin. But if you don't ask me any questions, I'm like, you guys all know. That's what I tell my friend, like, you guys all know what I think about Bitcoin. If you want to talk to me, like, you can come find me. But I try to stay away from it now because it's just people can get bored of it. You know, some people don't like talking about money and finances, which I don't understand. You know, you work your whole life to store your money up in something, your wealth up in something, but then you don't want to learn about money. And that's just something that I don't like. Like I said before, when I learn that there's a game, the first thing I do is study the strategy of that game.
Mm-hmm.
And so when people, it's like you're playing the game of life. The game of life, as far as money is concerned, is get as much as you can, do it honestly, don't swindle anyone, and then make that money work for you. But when people, they just work and they break their backs working, and they never look up to ask the questions, what is money? It just mind boggles me, because I don't understand why you wouldn't want to know the strategy, why you would want to work your whole life and you'll never be able to retire. I just don't, or never be able to work in what you really want to work in and make an impact in something that you want to make an impact in. You just work in something that someone else is telling you what to do, which in my opinion, it's all is encompassed in freedom, right? Bitcoin is freedom, because it's a money that helps you attain your own freedom, where the fiat mindset, you know, working for someone else. And I'm not saying working for someone else is bad, but just doing what you don't want to do over and over again. You're in debt up to your eyeballs with your homes, your cars, everything. Like, at what point is it just glorified slavery versus being free, truly owning your money outside of, you know, in a debt-free system? And I think that's what's so empowering about Bitcoin, is it brings freedom back to this American spirit that I believe in the idea of America, you know, having a place to be free, having a place where everyone can kind of be somewhat selfish in their freedom, but then it actually works for the good of everyone else. And so that's why I think Bitcoin is actually more American than the US dollar. But you tell a friend that, and they, you know, they look at you like you just took crazy pills.
Well, it seems like there's a lot of things that are more American than America these days.
Yeah.
What is your take on America? You know, I mean, you come and go a lot. You just came back probably after a 6 or 9 month stint overseas.
Yeah.
What is your take, especially through these last 2 or 3 years?
Yeah. What I really liked, so in Europe, right? I was in Spain. You had to wear a mask when you walked outside, which that was terrible. I liked how, you know, when I would come back depending on, so I spent some time in Utah. I'm from California. I spent some time in California. In Utah, when I would come back, you didn't have to wear your mask anywhere. You didn't have to wear it in businesses, nothing, you know? And so I like that there are states that you can go to where some states, they may focus on certain qualities of life and other states focus on other, and you can kind of decide, and you don't have to give up, you know, your citizenship of a country. So I really like that about the US, even though we'll see how long, you know, some people say there's going to be a balkanization of the US. Who knows, right? Like, who can predict the future on that? But I would say, then there's other states where they don't care about your freedoms as much. And it is surprising to me, you know, just once you learn about Bitcoin, right, your eyes get opened up to that there's people that call themselves experts that are wrong all the time. You know, how many economists have we heard talk about Bitcoin and they're wrong? And so I think that it just totally changed my mind that there's really, like, are there truly experts out there? Yeah, there probably are, but you want to hear opinions from a multitude of sources, and you want to hear opinions from people who disagree with you, because you shouldn't be afraid of people who disagree with you if you're that right. But I guess going back to, what is America versus Europe, I like America a lot, but I love the history of Europe. And I like how you can go out there, you can see these castles, these old buildings, these old churches that were built, centuries before the United States was even a thing, was even a country. So, and my culture is American, so I understand things better here. I always say Europe is like bizarro America. Instead of dollars, it's euros. Instead of Fahrenheit, it's Celsius. Instead of miles, it's kilometers. Instead of it being 3:00 in the afternoon, it's 15 o'clock. So it's just kind of like bizarro. And after a while, you get it, but then after a while, it's like, it's still just like a little off. And then you come back to the US and you're like, I understand everything perfectly,
Yeah. Do you see it a little bit? Like, I know sometimes when I see my nieces and nephews or cousins that I haven't seen in a year or so, or 6 months, I sometimes notice more change than maybe their parents do.
Yeah.
Has America been changing to you as you've been coming and going in terms of just in terms of like prices and inflation and economics?
Yeah.
I'm kind of curious. What your take is on our economic situation right now, and more just the non-Bitcoin stuff, and how you might talk to that with like a buddy or a friend.
Yeah, obviously, like politics, and I don't know if this is just because I've been getting older, and when you get older, people start talking about politics more. I don't know if that's a thing, but politics is, people talk about politics all the time, when before it was like, I don't know anything about politics, right? That's what most people would say. And nowadays, you've just noticed that people think like, okay, if you either agree with this or you're part of the problem, which I hate that statement, because like, just because someone has a different opinion than you doesn't mean that they're a part of the problem. They're just
that premise is part of the problem.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And maybe that's being hypocritical, thinking that, right? Oh, well, if you say you're part of the problem, you're the one that's part of the problem. Like I used to tell people, my only pet peeve is people that have pet peeves, right? Like that way. It's like, you don't need to have a pet peeve, but then in that I'm having a pet peeve. So, but yes, I think just how people get so emotional over any topic, it's kind of ridiculous, right? Oh, people got so emotional over abortion, one way or the other. And I'm like, okay, I can kind of see the argument from both sides. Like, yeah, and I'm not trying to preach to anyone about anything. It's like, okay, I get why, some people would really want it, and I get why other people are like, look, you're killing babies, So, but when you're having a conversation about it, you can't get so emotional where it's like there's no conversation, there's no middle ground on anything. And it's the same with gun control. And there's so many issues out there that it's like, I can't support every person's issue. And I think that's what we're seeing nowadays. Like I support the current thing. It's like every day there's a new issue. And now I'm supposed to be this PhD level of expertise from social media on every issue. And if I'm not, then I'm part of the problem. If I'm not, then what are you doing? Right.
Yeah.
So I think that's one of the things. It's like, dude, in my opinion, the biggest issue is the money, and Bitcoin fixes a lot. It doesn't fix everything, but it fixes a ton. And so I've just kind of said, you know what, screw it. All these other little problems, and some of them are big, but they're not my fight, right? Like, I think my fight my issue is Bitcoin, and I think it's everyone else's issue as well, because the money touches everything. There's nothing else out there that like is touched by, like everything is touched by one thing besides the money. And so I think that is, to me, why money is so important, because every transaction, every communication, all these things that we do, it's touched by money that's broken and that continually gets more and more broken. And fiat, in my opinion, it's literally, it's an error, because you can't, it's like having a ruler, right? I think about having a ruler.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a ruler, it's 12 inches. What happens if you make the ruler bigger, but you only keep it with 12 inches still? There's still 12 inches on it, but the inches have gotten bigger. Well, now your measuring tool is incorrect.
Yep.
So everything else that you measure with, if that was 1 inch, right? You measure an edge of your table is, well, now you have to make that edge of your table bigger to match your ruler.
Right.
And then everything else has your paper. Oh, if that was that 8 inches, well, you have to make the paper bigger to match that ruler. So once the measuring tool is broken, and everything else along with it is broken. And that's why Bitcoin to me is so stable, because it's 21 million, will never be any more. And that's what's so beautiful about it, is it's so simple.
Right.
And but yet it can scale up to hold all of the wealth of the whole world.
Athletes' salaries were probably my earliest sort of like foundational understanding of unit of account, because I would go, okay, well, Michael Jordan got paid 30 million a year.
Yeah.
Well, this dude's getting paid 27 million a year and he sucks. Like,
yeah.
Well, so, but Michael Jordan's 30 million was from the year that the money was worth, the ruler, it's like with the ruler example, it's like, well, are you using the 2017 ruler? Are you using the 2018 ruler? Like, how big do I make my table? Because I don't know which ruler you are using. Because an inch is not just an inch. I used to I just try to explain it to people around, like, if your house was measured, with a ruler, and the state gave you the ruler and it's 1,000 square feet, so you owe $1 per square footage for taxes. And the next year, now your house is 1,100 square foot, but it didn't get bigger. It's just the ruler got smaller. Now you owe more. But then, you're taking it further to the second and third order effects of, permeating every bad decision that's coming from using the wrong unit of account.
Yes.
And, there's some inflation. Like I used to always think about, like, oh, this guy makes more than Michael Jordan, like Mickey Mantle made in his whole career. And this guy sucks, but there has been differences in, network television revenue and different things. But it shows you the money's not the same.
Yeah. I mean, and you have to take into account, right, the network effect of the NBA that's growing, but has it grown so much so where I
almost get offended for players.
Yeah.
And there's the notion that they've, paved the ground and the path for the future generations. And that's why they're doing so well. But it's sometimes amazing to see guys that just aren't as good. Couple more questions for you. So one, as a memer, do you see all of this though as what we're in on Twitter, like information warfare? Are you guys like in the trenches as a memer, taking on powerful forces?
Yeah. Yes and no, right? Like, I think as memers, today, like, look at the Fed, right? The Fed has a dual mandate. The dual mandate is price stability and full employment. But if you think about what's their real mandate, it's control the narrative. So it's like a propaganda mandate. How do they control the narrative? Because if they say we're gonna raise rates, we're gonna do some quantitative tightening, and our target's 3.8%, like that's what they come out and say. Well, then they only raise it just a little bit. Oh, well, it looks like the market's predicting that they're gonna continue to go forward. Then they don't have to do as much. So their real mandate is to control the narrative. And so when your eyes get open to the BS that's out there, to the lies that exist like that, when you see this is obviously just a machine of lying, then what you want to do is expose the lie, because I was lied to my whole life. I hope that other people don't get lied to, or I hope they see the lie before it hurts them. I hope they don't get scammed, right? By all the altcoins, you know? And so you see these things and you try to tell people. And I think that's one of the jobs as a memer is to, part of it is we throw out lots of memes, as you've seen, I'm sure. And sometimes we like, look at Nick Carter, for example. That guy thinks that all of us are dumb. He thinks that we don't know what we're talking about. Oh, I don't need them. This is going to hurt them when I leave Bitcoin maximalism, all this other stuff, which he was never even a Bitcoin maximalist to begin with, which he admitted to. We just kind of thought, oh, he's writing all these papers, backing up Bitcoin. Okay, but whatever. Either way, I think it's good to be underestimated. And so we throw out a lot of memes that make it look like we're just, you know, we have no direction. But then when we need to, then we pounce in the right direction and we push signal fast. But then we create a lot of noise too. So there's a mixture, right? And you have to be able, and you know, sometimes people go, oh, what's this meme about? I don't even really know what this meme, or what's that meme about? And then you go, look, that's just a meme to have fun. Like sometimes we get bored on Twitter too. You know, even today I was talking to Yellow, you know, and he was like, yeah, you know, it's been kind of boring the last couple of days on Twitter. And I was like, yeah, it kind of has been, right? Like there's been the Nick Carter thing, but how many days, like, okay, the dude doesn't, he just self-imploded. Okay. Yeah. Like we can go after that for a couple of days, but then after a while it's like, okay, well, what's new? So sometimes we just meme to meme, we meme to have fun. And then other times we meme for signal. So you kind of got to be aware of what we're doing, or we have to be, maybe we have to be, maybe there's responsibility of the memer as well.
I think these memes are powerful. I think they, you know, they go back to the beginning of time. You asked me a little early about my rabbit hole story, and it was definitely memes that, or tweets that got in my head in terms of being the final touch and the thing that kind of like really pushed me. It was, you know, that I considered all those tweets one touch. Yeah. And those were memes. I also think about, and Star Wars is not my favorite film, but I think about, you know, that final scene in A New Hope where Luke Skywalker, you know, and all of them are trying to attack the mothership, and they only got to get one in to hit the one shot in the right spot. And I think about memes in that way, where they can kind of destroy billion-dollar marketing campaigns or this narrative control that's coming out of the Fed. So my two final questions for you is, you know, in terms of ball don't lie, if you had to pick LeBron, Kobe, or Jordan in a 1-versus-1 tournament, who would you go with?
Oh man, ball don't lie, 1v1, everything on the line, 10 Bitcoin on the line. I'm gonna go for MJ in out of their primes. I think
I go back and forth on this all the time because I mean I love all three of them. MJ is MJ. I get that, but I see Kobe as having sort of the blueprint of Michael Jordan in front of him.
Yeah,
and he's an inch taller, and he's probably got 10 or 20 pounds. So maybe he, you know, mastered playing defense in that turnaround jump shot maybe 2 or 3 years earlier in his career. And I think about like someone like Bob Marley. It's like you could have some children and maybe they want to follow in your footsteps and they can milk sort of your name, but maybe one of them is going to be better at you at playing saxophone and singing, but not necessarily will never get the name recognition or, you know, will grow out of the shadow, but they might technically be better. But then I look at LeBron and I'm like, all right, he's got 2 inches and 20 or 30 pounds on both of them.
Yes.
And in terms of ball don't lie, like you can't teach height in basketball.
Not at all.
And those factors come into play. Maybe he doesn't have that killer spirit. I don't know.
Yeah, he's not a killer. He's not a killer.
But like, I don't know if he needs it. He just has to go out there and perform and execute, use his size, maybe.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Then along those lines, and kind of like ball don't lie, but I think about Bitcoin and the scoreboard a lot.
Mhm.
And so my question for you is, has Bitcoin won? Has it won
No.
already?
No, it's not one. This is one of the things that I get scared about is obviously I play a lot of basketball, and I've had early leads before, and you think that you won, the game's over, and you lose because you get content. So I've seen that happen too many times. And I've done that to other teams where they get up early lead and they come from behind and win. I think it's on each one of us who understands what Bitcoin is to push further and push harder at what we do and who we talk to. Like if there's something that you can do it. If there's memes that you can make them. If there's people that you can orange pill them. If there's a business that you can start that's built on top of the Bitcoin ecosystem, do it, right? Like if there's publicity that you can get for Bitcoin in a good light, do it, right? And I think that's one of the reasons why, like, so I don't even know if you know this, but we're doing the halving party, and it's something that I've wanted to do, because the halving party, like I remember I watched the halving in 2020, and I watched Anthony Pompliano crack open a beer on YouTube, and I was like, this is kind of lame, you know? I'm like, this could be way better, and it should be better. It's like the Olympics of Bitcoin. Once every 4 years, it's huge. So I'm like, guys, we gotta do a halving party, and I'm trying to help organize it with the guys from the Meme Factory, and we're looking to do it in El Salvador for the halving of 2024. So I'm super excited about it. We have a ton of ideas. We want to just make it like a whole fest, you know, like a festival, not like a Bitcoin conference, nothing like. We want it to be something totally different than anything anyone's ever been to before, and just have a good time celebrating that Bitcoin is stable, that it does what it says it's going to do, and it follows its disinflationary schedule, you know? So,
Yeah.
so I think you got to push harder, right? If there's something you think you can do it, execute on it.
I'm going to push harder. I'm going to call a late foul like Tim Donahue, cheap late foul. We'll keep going here. So what is your favorite basketball movie?
Oh, well, there was a movie that just came out that was really good. Hustle with Adam Sandler. That's probably just the one because I just saw it. I thought it was a really good movie. And it might be better just for basketball fans in general. Hustle is a good one. I loved Space Jam, the first one as a kid, but I probably wouldn't like it as much now.
White Man Can't Jump.
White Man Can't Jump's a good one too. There's so many good ones. Love and Basketball, Blue Chips, Hoosiers is a good one. What's the one with Ray Allen?
He Got Game.
He Got Game. Jesus Shuttleworth.
I'm going with White Man Can't Jump. I think a lot about the scene with Rosie Perez, and sometimes when you win, you really lose, and sometimes when you lose, you really win, and sometimes when you tie, you really win or lose. I think we're kind of in that space right now with Bitcoin.
Yeah.
In terms of like you were saying, Bitcoin hasn't won yet. So my final question for you then is, if you could orange pill anyone in the world alive right now, who would it be?
If I can orange pill anyone alive, I've never thought about this before, really. Man. Okay, let me, can I toss it back to you?
Yeah, sure.
What would be the fastest way to get the world orange pilled?
Yeah, I try not to go down this wormhole, but I was inspired by looking forward to chat tonight, and I came up with Michael Jordan.
Michael Jordan.
I feel like
that, but I wouldn't.
I feel like he's like the Mickey Mouse of today.
Yeah.
and if he
If he
took
started-
sort of a stance like that, I think it would be very impactful in terms of it'd be the first political thing he did, even though I don't think Bitcoin is political in the sense that we've used the term earlier tonight.
Yeah.
But I am inspired by people who say it's not about this person or that person, or
It's true.
I'm not into the Elon Musk answer or the Joe Rogan answer.
Me neither.
I'm more into like all my parents,
Yes, that's
or
what
something along those lines. But it's always interesting. But thinking about talking to you tonight, I thought, hey, Michael Jordan would be really interesting in terms of maybe one of the biggest icons alive today that I don't think comes with a lot of the baggage that I think would detract from someone of that stature coming out.
Yeah, like if he went on like a Michael Saylor type of talking about Bitcoin and how it was important, that would be kind of cool. I was thinking, it's funny because I was thinking two things. I wasn't thinking Michael Jordan, but I like that answer. Now, the more that I think about it, I actually really like that answer. I was thinking I have an older brother who won't buy Bitcoin. Everyone else in my family has bought Bitcoin. My sisters haven't, but that's okay. But my parents have got it, right? I have two other brothers that got it. My one brother just won't do it. He studied economics in college, as funny as it may be. And then I was thinking either him or the CEO of Apple. I was thinking if Apple did it, because Apple could integrate everything into the iPhone, and if they integrated it and they did no altcoins, no scams, just Bitcoin, that would be really cool.
Huge honor,
like a Jack Dorsey at Apple or something like that would be kind of cool to see.
Yeah, from an infrastructure perspective, I mean, those guys and those companies are just huge. I think from a maybe a more evil bented way, I think if Facebook had just come up with a synthetic dollar, I think that would have been a really good way for them to Trojan horse the U.S. government, do the nefarious things they wanted to do, but also just create a great bridge for most users in the world to just go digital, go right to Bitcoin. But I'm almost, I think things always go the way they should. And, I don't think I would have guessed where we are right now, but where we are right now feels right. And I think I'm glad those companies haven't pushed hard. I think it just, I agree with your sentiment.
Yeah.
But I'm glad it's going the way it's going. And there's more time for people to discover it on their own and not have maybe those companies profit as much and be a big part of the new tool shed, I guess.
Yeah. Maybe another president from South, like the Argentinian president. Don't even know his name, but like
it'd be nice to see another economy bigger than El Salvador jump in the ring.
Yes, like a big country like that would be really cool to see because I just think there's a lot of people I've spent some time in Latin America. I speak Spanish. There's a lot of people out there that could benefit from Bitcoin.
Yeah. Well, Max Kaiser seems to think Latin America is going to lead the way.
He could be right. He could be spot on with that.
It seems like they have the right's not the word, but it seems like it's a potent mix of incentives, motivation, and sort of their spot in geopolitical history.
Yeah,
kind of has them.
Yeah, I'm starting to push harder too because now I'm doing a podcast in Spanish as well on Bitcoin.
Oh wow!
I'm like,
You're taking on a lot, and you're very articulate.
Yeah, I couldn't find the right information I wanted to give to my Spanish teammates. So now I was just like, well, I guess
serve it up.
Yeah, so I've been getting some guests and stuff. So that's fun too.
Yeah, you're hustling and getting busy, and it just seems like you're got a nice mindset for taking on the challenges of your life and articulating them and kind of getting that across. So I can't tell you how much I've appreciated this conversation, Sean.
Yeah,
it's been incredibly dope.
Yeah, it's been great.
I'll leave it to you for any parting words and letting everyone know where they can find you.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter, Big Sean Harris. That's the easiest place. Or just doing some fun things or dumb things with the Meme Factory. And I'm excited for that halving party. So I'll show that. Come to the halving party 2024. Hope to see you down there, and I hope to see you even before then. And
yeah,
thinking sometime soon.
That sounds great. You gonna be a BitBlock Boom?
I'm not. I'm actually gonna travel down to El Salvador in August because gotta figure out some things before we make this happen. So,
Awesome.
but I need to go to more events. I went down to the Bitcoin conference and I had a blast down there meeting plebs. I think you and me actually brushed by each other in 2021 in the dome, the Swan Dome. I think you were there with your wife.
I think that's right.
Yeah,
I was there with my wife, and I think I remember that.
Yeah.
She says, "What's up?"
Yeah.
I brushed by Greg, I think, in Miami.
Yeah.
I know that we didn't talk, but I was entering a bar and he was leaving a bar.
Okay.
And
was that this year or last year?
This year. It was kind of late, and I think he kind of said something to a lady there. She didn't like what he said, and
that's normal.
So he walked out, and it was kind of late. So I said to the ladies, "You know what? You should just tell him. You should just yell, 'Fuck you, Greg.'"
Yep.
And I don't know why she believed me. I said, he would like that. He likes that.
Yes.
I don't know why she believed me and didn't think this was going to cause more trouble, but she was like, "Fuck you, Greg." And everyone around Greg started laughing, and which gave her more confidence in her and her friend. And they said, "Fuck you, Greg." And
yeah.
And Greg was like, how do they know this?
Yeah, it's awesome when people, like, when you're with him and people just say that. It's just, I've been with them the last 2 conferences down in Miami, and it's just so much fun when Greg is like, he's the life of the party. There's no one more fun to hang out with.
Yeah, he seems like a lot of fun.
I would rather hang out with him than any other Bitcoiner out there. It's just so much fun to hang out with him.
He seems, I've only seen him from far. He seems a little bit like in that brilliant comedic vein of Chris Farley, where because he could pull off a lot of like dumb comedy that is not say things that kind of play the dumb role, but it's kind of brilliant.
He's extremely smart.
That's what I mean. Like,
yes.
It's like, it's just really smart humor. But some of it could be like potty jokes, but like,
yes.
But they're not easy to pull off, and they're not dumb. They're really, some of them brilliant. It's brilliant humor.
Yeah.
And he's playing a certain role.
Yeah.
So yeah, man, I've enjoyed this conversation immensely. This has been so dope. Thank you so much, Sean.
Yeah. Thanks, Cedric. Appreciate it.